If you are receiving tax credits, working tax credit, child tax credit, or both, and you have not heard anything from HMRC recently, that silence is not reassurance. That silence is the part you need to understand right now. Welcome back to HMRC Update. And today I want to talk about something that affects hundreds of thousands of people across the United Kingdom who have not been given a clear picture of where they stand. Former tax credit claimants who moved across to universal credit or pension credit and assumed that was the end of it. The HMRC chapter closed. The DWP chapter opened. Clean break. For a very large number of those people, it is not a clean break. And the letters that are arriving through their doors right now, from HMRC and from DWP, are causing genuine confusion because nobody explained what comes after the migration. Today, I am going to explain exactly that. What HMRC is still doing with your old tax credits account. What happens to any overpayment you were told you owe. What rights you have that most people in this situation have never been told about. And what to do if a letter has arrived that you do not understand. If you are not subscribed to HMRC Update, please do that now and hit the bell. This is exactly the kind of situation that needs explaining clearly, after the headline announcement, after the migration deadline, in the part that most coverage ignores completely. Subscribe. Let us get into it. Tax credits ended on the 5th of April 2025. That date is confirmed. There are no live tax credit awards after that point. Every claimant who was receiving working tax credit or child tax credit was either issued a migration notice, a formal letter from DWP telling them to claim universal credit before a specific personal deadline, or in some cases a closure notice directing them toward pension credit instead if they were of state pension age. The managed migration exercise for tax credit claimants was completed by that date.
What that means in practice is that if you were on tax credits and you received your migration notice and you made your universal credit or pension credit claim before your personal deadline, your tax credit stopped and your new benefit began. If you received your migration notice and you did not claim by your deadline, your tax credits were terminated and no transitional protection applied. And if you somehow did not receive a migration notice, which in a small number of cases did happen due to postal issues or address changes, the position is more complicated and the route forward requires direct contact with DWP. Here is where the situation stands in July 2026 and why it still matters for people who believe the whole thing is behind them. The first thing that is landing on people right now is the tax credits finalization. When your tax credits ended, HMRC was required to finalize your last award, to calculate what you were actually entitled to for the period your claim was active, compare that against what was paid, and either confirm the award was correct or identify an overpayment. That finalization process has been running throughout 2025 and into 2026. Finalization packs, documents similar to the old annual renewal packs, but with different deadlines and different implications, have been and are still being issued to former claimants. If one of these documents has arrived and you have not responded, or if you are not sure what it was asking you to do, that is the first thing to address. The finalization pack asks you to confirm whether your income and circumstances for the final tax credits year were correctly reported. If there were changes you did not report at the time, income that went up, a partner who moved in or out, childcare costs that changed, the finalization is the point at which HMRC identifies whether those unreported changes created an overpayment. Tax credits overpayments are one of the most misunderstood areas of the
entire system. And right now, in July 2026, they are also one of the most active, because HMRC is finalizing thousands of closed claims, and the resulting overpayment letters are landing with people who have no experience of this process, and no clear understanding of what it means or what they can do about it. Here is what you need to know. A tax credits overpayment is money that HMRC says you received but were not entitled to. It can arise for several reasons. Your income for the year was higher than the estimate you gave at the start of the year, and the credit was not adjusted in time. You had a change in circumstances, a new partner, a change in working hours, a child leaving full-time education that you did not report promptly, and the payments continued at the old rate. Or, and this is the one that surprises people most, HMRC made an error in calculating your award and overpaid you, even though you did everything correctly. That last category matters enormously because the rules around it are substantially different from the standard recovery rules, and almost nobody who is owed this protection knows it exists. If a tax credits overpayment arose because of HMRC's own error, they were told correct information and calculated the award wrongly, or they failed to act on information you provided in time, you have the right to dispute the overpayment, not appeal it, dispute it. The distinction is important. A dispute is a separate process from a standard appeal, and it is governed by HMRC's own code of practice, known as COP 26. Under COP 26, if HMRC failed to meet their responsibilities, they received accurate information from you and still paid incorrectly, the overpayment may be written off entirely, not reduced, written off. The process requires you to write to HMRC Tax Credits, set out the circumstances of how the overpayment arose, and explain why you believe HMRC's error, rather than any error or omission on your part, was responsible. HMRC must then
consider whether their handling meets the standards set out in COP 26. If it does not, they are required to write off the debt. If they refuse and you believe the refusal is wrong, you can escalate to the independent case examiner and ultimately to the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman. Most people receiving tax credits overpayment letters in 2026 simply pay what is asked, assuming the figure is correct and that no other option exists. A significant proportion of those people have grounds to dispute the debt that they have never been told about. Drop a comment below if you received a tax credits overpayment letter and did not know the dispute process existed. I want to know how widely this is reaching people on this channel, and it will help me understand what to cover next. If your overpayment was legitimate, your income was genuinely higher than you reported, or a change in circumstances was not reported in time, you still have options that go beyond simply paying the full amount immediately. The first is a repayment plan. HMRC negotiates time-to-pay arrangements for tax credits debt. If the full amount is not manageable in one payment, contact HMRC's Tax Credits Helpline on 0345-300-3900 and ask specifically to set up a repayment arrangement. HMRC's own guidance commits them to deal with overpayment recovery in a way that does not cause undue hardship. Monthly installments based on what you can realistically afford are available and can be agreed without involving debt collectors or enforcement. The second option, in cases of genuine financial hardship, is a request for the debt to be written off entirely on hardship grounds. This is separate from the COP 26 dispute process and applies when repaying the debt would leave you unable to meet essential living costs. HMRC will ask to see a budget showing your income, outgoings, and circumstances. Evidence of physical or mental health conditions that affect your ability to work or manage finances is relevant and should be provided if it applies. HMRC's guidance confirms they should deal with these cases positively and sympathetically. Even where a full write-off is not agreed, HMRC can pause recovery for up to 12 months, where there is no current ability to pay. Now, here is the part that affects people who have already moved to universal credit and are only just discovering that their old tax credits debt has followed them. When a former tax credit claimant claimed universal credit, HMRC transferred any outstanding tax credits overpayment debt to DWP. DWP then recovers that debt from the Universal Credit Award directly, through a deduction from monthly payments. The standard rate of deduction is typically up to 15% of the Universal Credit Standard Allowance, though the exact amount depends on individual circumstances and what has been agreed. If you are on Universal Credit and your monthly payment is lower than you expected, or lower than the calculation on your award notice suggests it should be, one reason may be that a tax credits debt is being deducted. Check your Universal Credit account online or through the app for a breakdown of deductions. If a deduction is shown and you believe the underlying debt is wrong, contact DWP through your Universal Credit Journal and ask for the deduction to be paused while the original tax credits overpayment is disputed with HMRC. The two organizations are separate. The debt originated with HMRC. The dispute must go to HMRC even though DWP is doing the collecting. If you are on pension credit rather than universal credit, because you were of state pension age when your tax credits ended, the same transfer applies. Any tax credits overpayment debt HMRC held is transferred to DWP and recovered from your pension credit payments. The same right to dispute and the same hardship provisions apply. There is one final piece that applies specifically to people who had a disability element in their tax credits, either
child tax credit with a disability element or working tax credit with a disability element, and whose underlying disability benefit was backdated. HMRC confirmed that the longer backdating rules for tax credit disability elements continue to apply, even after the closure of the tax credit system. If you have been awarded a qualifying disability benefit, PIP, DLA, or equivalent, and that award has been backdated to a period when you were still receiving tax credits, HMRC will amend your closed tax credit award to include the disability element for that backdated period. This must be reported to HMRC within 1 month of the disability benefit decision. The result may be additional tax credits entitlement for the backdated period, money owed to you, not from you. If this applies to your situation, contact HMRC's Tax Credits helpline on 0345 300 3900. Explain that you have received a disability benefit backdated to a period when you were receiving tax credits, and ask them to review the closed award. This is a genuine entitlement that the system does not process automatically, and that most people in this position have no idea exists. So here is where this all sits. If you received a finalization pack from HMRC about your last tax credits award and have not responded, respond now. Contact the Tax Credits helpline on 0345 300 3900. If you have received a tax credits overpayment letter and the debt arose from an error in how HMRC calculated or handled your award, not from unreported income or circumstances on your part, you have the right to dispute it under HMRC's COP 26 code. A successful dispute can result in the debt being written off entirely. Write to HMRC Tax Credits, set out what happened, and ask them to review the overpayment under COP 26. If you cannot repay a legitimate tax credits overpayment in full, contact HMRC on 0345 300 3900 and ask for a time to pay arrangement. If repayment would cause genuine hardship, ask for the debt to be considered for
write-off and provide a budget showing your income and outgoings. If you are on universal credit and a deduction is being taken for a tax credits debt you believe is wrong, raise a dispute with HMRC directly, not with DWP, and ask DWP through your journal to pause the deduction while the dispute is being considered. And if you received a disability benefit backdated to a period when you were still on tax credits, contact HMRC within 1 month of the decision to have your closed award amended and any additional entitlement paid. Tax credits ended on the 5th of April 2025, but the consequences, the debts, the disputes, and the entitlements that flow from them did not end on that date. They are landing right now, in people's post, in their universal credit accounts, and in situations they were not told to expect. You now know what to look for and what to do about it. If this video helped you understand something that has been confusing or worrying you, share it with someone else who was on tax credits. The people most likely to need this information are the people least likely to have come across it themselves. Subscribe to HMRC Update if you are not already here. I will see you in the next one.